This is Chapter 17 of Kimberly Brubaker Bradley's The War That Saved My Life. When Jamie came home, it was obvious he'd been crying, but he wouldn't say why. He wet the bed in the night and woke up miserable. Outside, gray clouds were spitting rain. "I can't go to school in the rain," Jamie said. "Of course you can," Miss Smith replied. She looked awful, her hair every which way and great dark circles under her eyes. She held her mug of tea in both hands and stared into it. "I ain't going," Jamie said. "Don't start with me," Miss Smith replied. "We sit down to breakfast and a plane blew up at the airfield. It crashed, I guess. It didn't blow up in the air, it blew up because it slammed into the ground. The gas tank ruptured. We learned that later. It sounded like a bomb exploding, like a bomb in Butter's pasture. We all jumped up, knocking over dishes and chairs. I ran toward the door, toward Butter, and Miss Smith grabbed me and Jamie and pushed us beneath the table. After a moment, when nothing else happened, she got up and looked out the window. "Oh," she said, "it's an airplane." Under billows of black smoke across the road, we could see orange flames and twisted pieces of metal. Jamie cried out and would have run to the airfield, but Miss Smith held him back. No civilians," she said. "No civilians, not now. See, they're getting the fire out." We could see servicemen and women, tiny in the distance, working frantically all around the burning plane. "Who was the pilot?" Jamie asked. "Who was the crew?" "We didn't know them," Miss Smith said, stroking his hair. "I know them," Jamie said. I wasn't sure how Jamie could know them. There was a big fence around the airfield now, and he knew he wasn't allowed there, though of course that really wouldn't stop him, but I didn't say anything. I wasn't going to call him a liar, and not over a dead airman. "I wonder what kind of plane it was," Miss Smith said. "A Lysander," Jamie said. A transport plane. It could have had 10 people on board." We looked at him. He said, "That's what it sounded like before the crash." I was so used to the sound of planes I never paid attention to them anymore. The different kinds of planes didn't sound different to me. Jamie leaned into Miss Smith's arms. She held him tight, rocking him softly back and forth. I stood still, absorbing what I was seeing. Jamie turning for comfort to someone other than me. We ran into Lady Thornton in the village when we were shopping later that week, and she told us that Maggie, she called her Margaret, of course, had gone off to her school and wouldn't be home until Christmas. I was sorry to not see her again. I wanted to talk to her, and when she hadn't just been hit on the head, I wanted to know if she still liked me when she wasn't woozy. Jamie kept hating school. He skipped twice, and after that the teacher wrote Miss Smith a note, and Miss Smith started to walk him to school every afternoon. Once he was inside the building, he was trapped. I knew how it felt to be trapped. I had been trapped all summer in our flat. I had been trapped all my life in our flat. But I couldn't understand why Jamie hated school. Most of the kids from our neighborhood back home were there, including all of Jamie's friends, and except for Billy White. They had breaks where they got to run and play in the schoolyard. Plus, pretty soon he'd be able to write and read, and then Miss Smith wouldn't have to read to us Swiss Family Robinson at night anymore. Jamie could read it to himself. "I don't want to talk about it," he said when we asked him. "I'm sorry," he said when he wet the bed, which he did every night now. "I want to go home," he told me. "You'd miss Miss Smith," I said nastily. "I wouldn't," he said. "I'd have Ma'am." I could imagine Ma'am might have softened towards us, or at least toward Jamie. She probably missed us at least a little. "They have a school at home too," I said. He shrugged. "Ma'am won't make me go." I knew this was probably true. Meanwhile, Miss Smith was in a fit because Ma'am hadn't responded to any of her letters. She asked me, "Does your mother know how to read?" I shrugged. How would I know? Surely there's a social worker, a priest, someone who could read it to her and write out her reply. Probably there was, but Ma'am would never ask them. Why does it matter? I asked. So long as Ma'am knew where we were and could come and get us when she decided to. Do you want her to come take us home? Miss Smith gave me a strange look. I do not. You know why it matters. I didn't. Sometimes I was so angry about everything that I didn't know. Miss Smith bought acres of black material for the blackout. We'd been under blackout regulations since the first day of evacuation, before the war even began. It meant that nobody, no houses, buildings, shops, or even things like buses or cars was supposed to show any sort of light outside after the sun went down. That way, if the Germans came to bomb at night, they wouldn't be able to see where any of the cities or villages were. It was harder to hit a dark place than a lit one. For the first month, Miss Smith hadn't bothered covering the windows. She just didn't put any lights on at night. Jamie and I went to bed before the sun went down, so we didn't care, and Miss Smith could sit and brood in a dark room as easily as in a bright one. But now the sun was setting earlier, so Miss Smith made blackout curtains for the upstairs windows and fabric stretched over frames for the windows downstairs. We stayed up late one Saturday putting all the blackout up, then turning on all the lights inside. Jamie and I walked around the house outside looking for any chinks of light and yelling to Miss Smith when we saw one, and she adjusted the curtains until all the chinks were gone. Afterward, she made us hot cocoa. Very good, she said. I'm sure we'll get used to having the house this dark. She looked almost happy, almost cheerful for a change. I wondered what it would be like if Jamie and I really were stuck here all winter. I hated winter and the flat, so cold. Miss Smith had a fireplace in the main room. She could burn coal. I haven't had my sewing machine out since Becky died, she continued. It felt good to be making something, even if it was only those awful curtains. I suppose I might run up a few things for the two of you. Miss Smith had made us try on all the clothes that Miss Lady Thornton brought, and gave back whatever didn't fit. She also had thrown away the clothes that we had come from London in. Still, I had 3 blouses, 2 skirts, 2 sweaters, a dress, a coat, and a pair of riding pants. More clothes than I'd owned in my lifetime. I couldn't imagine needing anything else. Dressing gowns, Miss Smith said, as though reading my mind. For winter, something warm you can ride in, something perhaps pretty. The red dress is very nice, but it's not the best color for you. She looked at me in a way that gave me the feeling of being a fish on a slab. Blue, perhaps. Maybe a nice bottle green. Green's a good color with your complexion. Velvet. I loved the velvet dress I had as a girl. I hate velvet, I said. She laughed. You wouldn't know velvet if your underwear was made from it, she said. Ada, that's a fib. Why? I said, I don't want you making me things. And her smile faded. Why not? I shrugged. I had more than I needed, more than I felt comfortable with, really. I was still the girl that I had seen in the train station mirror, still the feeble-minded girl stuck behind a window, the simple one. I was okay with wearing Maggie's cast-offs, but I knew my limits. Jamie leaned forward. Will you make me a velvet? He asked. Miss Smith's smile returned. I will not, she said. I'll make you something stout and manly. Jamie nodded. Like in the book, he said. In the book, that stupid Swiss Family Robinson was all the time making and finding things. It was like magic. It was how the father would think it was a shame they didn't have any wheat for bread, and the next thing they'd stumble onto a whole wheat field, or a wild pig would run out the forest just when he got a hankering for bacon. They'd build a mill to grind the wheat to flour and a smokehouse for the pork out of nails and wood that they just happened to have on the land. Jamie loved it. He begged for more of the story every night. I was tired of those idiots living on an island with everything that they could ever want. I didn't care if I never heard another word. "You won't have to make us anything," I said. "We won't be here that long." Miss Smith paused. "The war doesn't seem to be moving very quickly," she said. Right. More and more of the evacuated children had gone back to London, but not us. Not yet. "You'll be glad to get rid of us," I said. "You didn't want us in the first place." Miss Smith sighed. "Ada, can't we have a happy night? Can't we drink cocoa and be happy together? I know I said I didn't want evacuees, but I've explained it wasn't anything to do with you. I didn't not choose you. Everyone else did." I put my mug down. "I hate cocoa," I said, and I went to bed. It was Miss Smith, not me, who saw the welt on Jamie's wrist. And that was the end of chapter 17.